Hello, y'all. Paul Chavez here. What's going on? On a little road trip to Chicago for the summer, selling pest control door to door. And while I'm driving, that's oftentimes it's like akin to late at night for me, or early in the morning. Just a good time to reflect and to think and to read, or not read, but listen to books on tape. And it's a good time for reflection. So while I've been driving, I was listening to a few songs from The Greatest Showman. I just listened to Come Alive, and that song got me thinking about life and just what if today were my last day? What if today were your last day to live? What advice would you want to pass on to those you care about, those you love, those maybe your children, friends, family? What advice would you want to carry on to them? And what if you only had a very short period of time to tell them this advice? So I decided I would sort of lead out with this, and I'd love to hear what your advice would be. What would your advice be if you only had this is your last day to live? What advice would you have for those you care about? What would you leave behind? What are your 3 best pieces of advice for life? And so, just off the cuff, I'm going to share 3 pieces of advice, things that have helped me. Just digging into my heart, not really putting a ton of time into thinking about this, but just sort of like my gut instinct. What's my gut? 3 pieces of advice. So number 1, when you want to react with anger and frustration at something in life, just take a breath, take a moment, and do everything you can to choose compassion, choose love. I really want to think of a story for each piece of advice, or a personal example. I think the best thing I can think of is just a general example. Just there's times where people I care about, people I love, friends I have, they just frustrate me, and sometimes I just want to chew their head off a little bit in the moment. But from sad experience, I've found that's not the best method. There's always a better way. And typically that comes down to biding your time a little bit, thinking things out, being assertive but not reactive and aggressive. But and this is something that I'm still working on. I'll think of a example if I can think back to one. Second piece of advice. When things get difficult, when things are hard, when things are challenging, and it seems like the world is sort of imploding all around you, and the weight that's on your shoulders is going to smother you and just destroy you. Keep going. Hang strong. Don't give up. Just keep going. because honestly, the growth and the growth that you will experience on the other side of that challenge, on the other side of that obstacle, whatever it is, will be so refining and so beneficial for you, that you'll be so grateful that you stuck with it. And an personal example from my life on this one, in 2016, I was selling pest control with Edge Pest Control and Lawn Care, and that was freaking hard. I was on the way out with my car group. I remember just having like little panic attacks, just feeling anxious right before I got on the doors. One day in particular, it was like maybe a month into the summer, month and a half. I drove out with my car group 15 miles or so from my apartment, and I decided I'd had enough. And so I just decided to walk home that day, the entire 15 miles or whatever it was. And it was 2016, so a year before I had hiked the Camino de Santiago in Spain. So I wasn't too fazed by a 15-mile hike. I actually just did that a couple days ago, summiting Mount Timpanogos, which was awesome. But essentially on this walk home, I had a long time to think and to talk to friends to sort of talk me down. Some friends were like, dude, if you're done, then go home. Other friends were like, man, stick it out. You can do this. But at the end of this 15-mile hike, I had made 2 phone sales without even trying. Just 2 people called, which is really unusual for me. And I decided, you know what? I added up all the time I had been on the doors in my entire life. And at that point, it was like 7 months. I realized I had knocked doors for my life for 7 months. And if I've done 7 months of knocking doors, I can do 1 more week. And after 1 more week, I told myself I could do 1 more week. And that's the way I just sort of limped to the end of the summer. That, and with leaning on the support of friends and managers and coaches, like Dale Bell and Dave Lanehart, Nate Baker, and Joel Burkholder, and James Thompson, and just people I love and care about and that really wanted to help me through it. One thing Dave Lanehart, he said, looking back 5 years, Paul, when you're 5 years down the line, think about how grateful you're going to be that you finished this really difficult thing and that you finished this summer of door-to-door sales. And looking back just a couple years, I'm so grateful that I did that. Just this last year, I finished teaching a whole year of 8th grade U.S. history. And there were definitely moments I wanted to quit. It was a 1-year-long teaching internship, half salary. We always hear about how terrible the salary is for teachers. And I was receiving half of that salary in Utah, which is, of course, historically, teachers in Utah are paid much less than the national average, specifically per pupil, right? As of just a couple years ago, the weighted pupil unit in Utah schools, specifically in Alpine School District, was like an all-time low, like the lowest in the nation. And there's legislation that just recently passed, I believe, that's changing that this year. But we're still pretty low. Part of that is just because we have an astronomical growth rate in Utah. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But when challenges are hard, when things are difficult, just freaking keep on going. And I kept going that summer, 2016. I finished the summer with like 100 sales. I had it was a successful summer for me. Came close to hitting my rent bonus, but at the end of the summer, I felt like, all right, I had made a good accomplishment. I'd gotten through this. And the same could be said for finishing the year of teaching, finishing my degree, making some great strides in my life that up until that time I had not done. So when challenges seem really difficult, when things seem really hard, just keep going. Dig deep and choose to have choose to be gritty. A good book along with that piece of advice is the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Incredible. I love it. Third piece of advice, I got to think about this one for a minute. Third piece of advice would be, in the midst of negativity, in the midst of complaining and just difficult things, choose to be positive. The way we respond to things and the way we respond to things is like, it's like 40 or 50% determines the outcome of our lives. We can choose, like, if it could be something as terrible as getting in a car accident, or for me, I'm about to go and do door-to-door sales for the 5th time. It can be something as simple as getting a door slammed in my face. Choosing to respond by just like shrugging it off, laughing about it, makes the situation so much better. Choose positivity in the face of difficulty. This is another one that I need to work on. This is another one I think we can all work on, is choosing to be happy, to focus on what's good, focus on what we're grateful for in the midst of negativity. I know that's hard. I know it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge for me, but it's something that will inevitably make our lives so much greater if we'll do that. So, going back to the example of compassion, when we're maybe tempted to respond with anger or frustration, choose compassion. A personal example: this last year, I was slated essentially to be cut from my program with my teaching internship, and it was a challenge. It was a difficult thing. I mean, there's some things I could have done differently, and I could have put a little more time in the previous year with my education program there at UVU. But I chose, I had chosen to start a club, and my energy was really invested in that. The Students for Refugees Club that I did 2016, 2017 at UVU, which was awesome, but it sort of distracted me from my studies a little bit. Anyway, so this last year of teaching, my principal there at Lake Ridge Junior High, although there were some people that wanted to cut me and thought it'd be best for me to do student teaching, which probably wouldn't have hurt, for me to have that more direct one-on-one mentorship with a cooperating teacher. My principal decided, you're doing just fine. She observed me a few times, and she decided to choose compassion and kept me on board, which was a great blessing, because I had just purchased a condo in November this last year, and that would have been really difficult financially. And honestly, I learned a ton. I learned so much completing the year. I developed so much love and respect and just admiration for the students that I had, for the teachers I worked with, for my mentors and coaches, and for teachers in general, and for all they go through. Hats off to all the teachers throughout the world who just like make the world go round, and who take it on themselves, take on this huge responsibility of educating the youth. It's such an important thing, and it's so incredible and so difficult and challenging. So that was super grateful for the compassion that my principal had. As far as choosing to be positive in the face of negativity, the best example I can think of would be a recent book I've read. It's called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And here's a man that suffered an incredible setback back in the early 2000s. He suffered a head-on he experienced a head-on collision, broke 11 bones in his body, was pronounced dead on the scene for 6 minutes, broke his femur, his pelvis bone, tons of bones, had permanent brain damage, fractured his skull, just faced extensive damage to his body, to his psyche. Was told by doctors he'd probably never walk again. This man chose, in the face of this really difficult opposition, just to not listen to his doctor, saying, "Oh, I'm probably going to walk again. I don't buy that." And within the next 2 years, he was a salesman for Cutco Knives. He had been doing very well, but he had never achieved number one status as the number one salesman for Cutco. Within just 2 years after this awful, like, catastrophic, some people would probably be just done for life, would just be confined to a wheelchair. He decided, heck no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make the most of my life, and bounced back and became the number one salesman for Cutco Knives within just 2 years of that awful accident. Choosing positivity, choosing to take control of his circumstances regardless of the negative situation that he had sort of been coerced into by a driver who had just shifted into his lane and crashed into him head on. Pretty incredible story. I'd highly recommend checking out Hal Elrod in The Miracle Morning. Anyway, that would be my 3 pieces of advice. When, if today were my last day to live, that's the 3 pieces of advice I would pass on. In the face of anger or frustration, choose compassion. The third one, in the face of negativity, when things just seem like they're all against us, choose positivity. Choose to just respond with gratitude and respond with doubling down and just being more aggressive at in regards to, like, achieving your goals. And the second one, when something is really challenging, when something is really difficult in our lives, just keep going, keep moving towards your goal, keep going through that really hard thing, and in the end, it will be so beneficial for you, for those around you, and the experience you will gain from just continuing through that really difficult thing will reap a lifetime of dividends. Anyway, I love you guys. That was my thought I had while traveling here through, I don't even know what state, somewhere between Colorado and Illinois. Love you guys. So grateful for all of your friendship. So grateful for my family, and grateful to be alive, grateful to be going out for another season of door-to-door sales with Edge Pest Control. Woo! It's gonna be a challenge, but it's gonna be good. All right, guys. Peace.